Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodlie, African power and African liberation for all African people. Greetings and welcome, brothers and sisters, to another edition of Kimbunga Media Analysis. And this edition is very special because it takes us to the beautiful nation of Nigeria. Why, I hear you asking? Well, the reason is because, for those who are not aware, we have broken another glass ceiling over here in the UK because the Conservative and Unionist Party has seen fit to elect for us our first black woman as the head of a major party in the UK, and we are all just overwhelmed with joy and compassion and consideration for this great nation, the United Kingdom of Great Britain, for granting us this tremendous honor and mercy. Yes, brothers and sisters, it's been an interesting time over here in the UK as the Conservative Party elected our dear sister Olukemi Olufunto Adegoke as the head of the party, brothers and sisters. Serious Tingagwan. And it's been an interesting time because Kemi Badenoch has really profiled herself as a very right-leaning member of Parliament, and for her, achievements, she has, to a significant degree, alienated a significant amount of the black community in the UK. And one of the most interesting things, that has the dynamics that I go and write about now is that, generally speaking, the African people in the UK are rather subdued, if not totally uninterested, if not condemning, about this particular appointment. But then there's a small section of us who are, black conservative industrial complex aspirants and or full-fledged members of the black conservative industrial complex. And those people are incensed by the fact that the black community is not, generally speaking, more jubilant, about this appointment. And it's interesting because Kemi and the entirety of the black conservative industrial complex spend a significant amount of their time, telling us why we should not be speaking and considering matters of race when it comes to politics, but yet they are incensed that we are not racially aligned with Kemi Badenoch, at least in our jubilation for her appointment. That is a very, very interesting dynamic. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have a lot of Labour Party members and or supporters who are calling her the black face of white supremacy, which, manifestly, if you are the head of the Conservative and Unionist Party of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, most certainly you are a black face of white supremacy. However, the problem with these Labour Party members is that they don't seem to recognize and realize that the Labour Party is no less an instrument of white supremacy. And for example, earlier this year, our brother David Lammy was elected as the Foreign Secretary. You cannot be the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and not be a black face of white supremacy, brothers and sisters. At least as far as the United Kingdom of Great Britain is currently constituted, and I, for one, fail to see how the United Kingdom of Great Britain, could be constituted any other way. Having said that, a few of the most interesting, if not most interesting, responses and reactions has come from Nigeria itself. And I had the opportunity to watch Arise News from Nigeria recently, and the brothers and sisters had a very, very interesting conversation, and I want to share the conversation and share my thoughts on the conversation right now.
Okay. Well, it's no surprise there that the first black woman to lead a major party in the UK is of Nigerian origin. Kemi Badenoch, I believe, was born here in Nigeria, grew up here before moving. She was born in the UK, actually. I thought, but she was raised here. In the UK, she was raised here. Yes, and then in the US before moving to the UK. She was 16, yes, and then moved back to the UK. I mean, one thing I will say about Kemi is that the new leader, Kemi Badenoch, the new leader of the Conservative Party, is that when it comes to her policy policies. I believe that not all skin folk is kinfolk, as they say in America. You know, she does believe that some cultures are superior to the others. You know, she has had her views when it comes to multiculturalism, when it comes to immigration, that sometimes are not kind to her skinfolk. But what do you think, Mr. Steve?
So this is interesting because you'll be forgiven, yeah, for assuming that back home in Nigeria, you know, the streets here will be full of jubilation, yeah, and celebration for one of their own, so to speak, being elected to such a high office in the nation of the former colonizer. Yes, indeed, brothers and sisters. But it seems as though the brothers and sisters in Nigeria are also particularly underwhelmed, yeah, by this appointment based upon Kemi Badenoch's politics, yeah, you know what I'm saying, you know. So it looks like our sister Olukemi is not impressing as one might assume she would. But let's continue with the conversation.
She won. We see this closely contested race between, you know, Kemi and Robert Jenrick, and even till the very last hours, it was looking as if, you know, it could go, you know, either.
10,000, I think she trounced him. I don't think it was. Yeah, more than 10,000. I don't think it was very close.
Talking about contested. With the support that they were both getting, right? Of course, she came out of, you know, the woodwork and trumped him. But really and truly, when you listen to, you know, what she said, you know, in her speech, committing to renewing the party, you know, returning to the first principles and seeing how they can actually bring more members, you know, back into the Conservative Party. Congratulatory messages are pouring in, of course, from, you know, as you know, we know how to, when a Nigerian does something and, you know, gets, you know, does something right, we see that, you know, that support, that, you know, push for her. And then, of course, critics from Labour and, you know, from Labour and the Reform UK are questioning her role in the previous government, suggesting that she hasn't been able to actually prove her commitment to change. And, you know, only time can tell to see exactly, like you said, those policies, how they're actually going to come into play, especially now with, you know, how, well, I say on the outside looking in, the Conservative Party looks.
So the one thing I want to highlight there is the how close, or, you know, not close, yeah, her victory was. And the one thing that was obvious for me from the time that Sunak announced his stepping down and Kemi announced her candidacy was that she was going to win. Yeah, she was going to win. And I've put out a video about this recently. Kemi Badenoch was going to win because she is necessary for the Conservative Party and the British establishment at this moment in time. Yeah, and in fact, an LBC guest, yeah, businessman, made a statement on LBC recently, right? You know, on the so-called cross section, that is very interesting, and I'll insert that right now.
I hope Kemi Badenoch wins because I think she's the only one who understands the depth of change that's got to take place, not just within the Conservative Party, but within the country, if it's going to be set on the right course. She's the only one who really understands that. She's always been clear in her positioning. She's also the only person who can talk about race in a sensible way, in a believable way, which is very important in Britain today.
So this is a blatant, you know, this statement, more than any other statement that anybody who's critical of Kemi Badenoch could make, certifies the fact that she is there, at least in the minds of the white folks who support her, to be the black face of white supremacy, to represent typical white British talking points, and have the veil of credibility, or at least a protection of not being considered to be outright racist in doing so, because she is a black woman. Yeah, so we're not going to spend too long on that right now. I just wanted to throw that in there, you know, for the sake of brevity, and we're going to get into the rest of this video now.
I mean, congratulations will be in order for those who think that this is a big deal, because, you know, first black...
I don't think it's a big deal.
First black woman to lead a major party in the UK, that's a big deal. I believe she'll be about the 6th woman, isn't it, that will be the leader in that country, particularly for the Tories. But you know, so that's the big deal part of it. I'm reluctant to want to claim her as a Nigerian because this is not what...
Why are you reluctant, Mr. Steve?
Because she doesn't appear to see herself as one. I think that she thinks that she was from here, you know, but she carries on. And not only does she carry on as a Briton, and she is within her right to do that. But then I won't be a big fan of anyone who talks down on where they're from.
Yes.
And I think that seems to be what she represents. She's fond of doing that.
She recently said, you know, that when she was younger, she was good in math and sciences, and they told her to get into the kitchen. And I'm like, I don't know any... She comes from a family of intellectuals. I don't know any young woman who grew up being good in school, coming from a family that your parents are lecturers or, you know, in the medical field, and they'll tell you to get back into the kitchen. I think that's a Western, you know, image painted of Nigerian society rather than an authentic representation of what Nigerian society is.
Correct.
Now, this is obviously a dynamic that I have identified before, that Kemi Badenoch seems to enjoy, and routinely speak negatively about Nigeria before the British public, and often in comparison and juxtaposition to the United Kingdom of Great Britain in favor of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. There's a video that I did previously, Nigeria versus Britain, and did Kemi Badenoch grow up under a socialist military regime in Nigeria, because that was her claim when comparing her childhood experience to that of Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. And so it's very interesting, that she consistently does that, but she has to, because that is the kind of language that excites, and endears the majority white population in general, and more specifically, the majority white conservative base in the United Kingdom of Great Britain to her. They need to understand that Kemi Badenoch is going to have no allegiance whatsoever to her heritage. And one of the best ways to do that is to continue persistently to denigrate, and speak negatively about where it is that you come from. It's you know, and I'm glad that our brothers and sisters in Nigeria have been aware of this and are prepared to speak about it publicly as well.
Right, and when she says that, when she sounds traumatic about why she left Nigeria, you know, at 16, and I believe that should be around 1996 when we were still, you know, under the military. I do not know the things that she encountered that, you know, made her leave on the one hand, and then, you know, make her talk in the manner that she talks, you know, about Nigeria and about her experiences in Nigeria. You know, I find that worrying for somebody who wants to lead a major party and who ultimately, when she's seeking for votes, you know, to be the prime minister, will need to speak to Nigeria. It looks to me that if you conduct a referendum or a poll, particularly among Nigerians who are among blacks of African descent in the UK, I doubt if she will be very popular. And therefore, it's important maybe to review our rhetoric. When it happens elsewhere, when we listen to people like Trump, you know, we express our concern, we express our consternation. But then from a black woman of Nigerian, you know, parentage, saying the sort of things that she, you know, she says, it looks to me like she's desperately trying to please the conservative white establishment. And she might be British on account of birth and nationality, but then she will be reminded ultimately, you know, that on account of biology and heritage, she can be English, and she will have to, you know, be careful in the manner that she portrays the values that she thinks that she represents.
And I think actually most worrying is that she is appealing for a move to the right. And it's because they're trying to get those extremist elements that have now gone to the Reform Party. You know, the Conservatives suffered a huge defeat in July, major defeat, but mostly because the extreme right-wing elements of the party moved to the Reform Party. And she's saying that Rishi Sunak, that the party was ruling from the center or moving to the right. I don't think that's true. I think to be fair to the Conservative Party in England, they are more moderate than you'd say, for example, the Republican Party in America. And so for her to come out and say that she's intending to move to the right is sending a very, very worrying signal. Because are you trying to get the people who went to reform, the Brexiters, the racists, the ones who want to, you know, burn immigrants or send them back to...
She voted for Brexit too, remember?
Yes, but you know, so beyond her views as a Nigerian or disparaging Nigerian, I think it's very concerning that she's trying to feed that into the party that she now leads.
Yeah, and especially when she also veers into the subject matter of slavery and reparation, and she tries to deflect, you know, and say things that won't just affect Nigerians, but this is an African black thing. And again, I just think that she will have to be careful.
So first and foremost, yeah, this issue, we're going to get deeper into Kemi Badenoch's statements on reparations soon. But one of the things that's interesting about that dynamic is that at least one aspiring black conservative industrial complex commentator by the name of Lynn May attempted to excuse and justify Kemi Badenoch's position by insinuating that her position on reparations could be inspired by her ancestry.
You do know that there was a strong force of West Africans that were against the abolition of slavery. They wanted slavery to continue because they were making money. So much so that they continued the slave trade with Arabs. The British Navy had to rescue slaves, bring them aboard and cut off their chains, because West Africans still wanted to trade slaves. They were making loads of money. And up to this day, slavery is rife in African countries. Maybe her supporting reparations is selling out her own. Maybe her forefathers actually agrees with slavery. Like, you don't know.
Now, the interesting thing about that is that Kemi Badenoch's own statements on reparations never evoked an allegiance to her West African ancestry, but most explicitly evoked an allegiance to Britain, Britishness, and British interest. But it's interesting that given how Lynn May tried to characterize her statements in terms of being allegiant to her Nigerian slave trading ancestry, it's interesting that the African Nigerians in Nigeria themselves are saying her statements on reparations are problematic, not just for us as Nigerians, but as black people in general. This is a message for all I know, idiot, yeah, who love to talk about and put forward this idea that the West African experience is so fundamentally distinct from ours and they can't understand us in the Caribbean, or they are fundamentally allegiant to our oppression because they are the people that, the descendants of people that sold us into slavery. Oh no, may I talk to? Oh no, idiot, may I talk to? Listen to what the Africans in Nigeria are saying about one of their own, so to speak, because Kemi doesn't recognize herself as such, evidently, yes, in that regard. Listen to what them I say on the subject of reparations. We could continue with the discussion.
She will have to be careful. I understand that her father has passed. I know many people who knew her father and who had a lot of respect, you know, for our family and things like that. But of course, you know, she's Kemi Badenoch is now Kemi Badenoch, so we will have to live with the fact that maybe this is a white woman in a black woman's skin. But you know, I mean, it's okay, isn't it?
No, we're not gonna lie, yeah. Me and my Empress were having catching much jokes over that statement, because we were wondering the extent to which, you know, the brother, rest in peace, yeah, to Baba Adegoke, you know what I'm saying, you know, may the ancestors have received him well, and may he be doing good work in the ancestral realm, in the Egungun, among the Egungun. However, we were wondering the extent to which he was, you know, saying that if her father was alive, yeah, you know what I'm saying, you know, things may have been different, or whatever to the extent to which he is saying that there are others who are suggesting that she's not doing justice to the legacy of her father. Very sensitive issue, but you know, the way how you raised it does raise those questions, brothers and sisters. But having said that, it seems to be the case that not only Africans in the UK are designating Kemi Badenoch the black face of white power. It seems that even the brothers and sisters in Nigeria have recognized that dynamic. I want to know what go around here, so I can conclude the reasoning.
You know, good luck to her. We wish her well, but of course we will see how things pan out in the weeks and months to come, maybe in the years to come, when elections will have to be called, you know, when the conservative parties will have to say, hey, what's going on here? What has Kemi really done? You know,
well, we'll
all the best.
We'll see if they would, if moving to the right would end up appeasing racists who would vote a black woman.
So yeah, you know, very, very interesting reasoning. I must say I enjoyed that reasoning myself, you know. So we see what the brothers and sisters, at least some of them in Nigeria, are saying. I have watched a few of the conversations on Arise News in relation to this issue, and you have some that are a little bit more for the thing, but there's always a critical element in every conversation that I've seen. People are asking the same questions and examining the same dynamics. And one of the things that was interesting to me, one of the brothers on another show on Arise News pointed out that when Rishi Sunak was in the premier seat of Prime Minister, he never felt the need as a Prime Minister now, the first Asian Prime Minister in the UK, he never continuously degraded and berated and spoke down upon his Indian heritage or his Indian culture. In fact, one of the first things, because he was came into office soon, just before Diwali, big, you know, Hindu celebration. Yeah, and one of the you know the newsworthy stories, yeah, was that he was, you know, lighting Diwali lights and candles and them in celebration of Diwali as the first British Asian Prime Minister. And he expressed delight and joy and pride in being able to do so. Yeah. So there was no denigrating of India and Indian culture in the statements of Rishi Sunak. Not that I know of anyway. And certainly if he did it, it wasn't a continuous thing. It wasn't a continuous refrain in his rhetoric. Yeah. And one of the more humorous, and I may do a video on this, yeah, but there was Kemi Badenoch had an interview in the lead up to her election as the Conservative leader, and they were asking her about what her children eat, right? And she said, because she was making the statement that they're not vegans at all, so them love lamb chop and sausage and a reel of regular British food. I mean, I wonder, Kemi, it's warm to egusi, it's warm to eba. It's one to ogbono soup. There's no allusion to anything celebratory, even superficially celebratory, in relation to Kemi Badenoch and her culture as a Yoruba woman or a woman who was raised in Nigeria. And one of the things that a lot of people in Nigeria seem to be offended by was the fact that she was raised between Nigeria and USA, but mostly in Nigeria, from my understanding. And much of her education comes from being educated in the Nigerian education system. Yeah. So you speak down upon the culture that afforded you and the nation that afforded you at least the education through which you are able to aspire and attain the position that you are currently being celebrated for. So I just thought I'd share what brothers and sisters in Nigeria are saying about Kemi Badenoch. And it's a very interesting conversation. I hope that you have found it as interesting as I did. Abibi Tomi, Abibi Fahodie, African power and African liberation for all African people.